All right, so I'm going to drive Ted absolutely up the wall because I pace when I talk. And I have multiple microphones pointed at me, so let's see how we do here. Just move that one around as well. My name is Emma Hogbin, and I have a fun talk, not quite as fun as the laptops, but it should be an exciting talk, because I'm going to be talking about women in open source. And I'm hoping that by the end of this, you will understand why it's so important to get women involved in open source. Probably not for the reasons that you think, though. So a little bit about me. I'm Canadian. I say a boot, and I also say a lot. I discovered the internet in 1995, and maybe if I pace on the other side, I won't get quite as much of that microphone. There we go. Moos, muds, and mushes. Maybe I'll just pace down here. And I was Newt back then. I'm now Emma, or Emma Jane. It's very exciting for me. Not quite as exciting as Lady Nikon, who I met last weekend, but pretty exciting. I run a variety of different, or have run a variety of different operating systems. The OS X training that I received from Apple convinced me that that was definitely not the way to go, and have been running variations on Debian for 7 years, which is practically a lifetime as far as the internet goes. I'm actively involved in a whole bunch of projects, or as you'll see in a little bit, have been actively involved. I think it's important to be counted, so I've got a few numbers up here. I'm 300,000 and something in terms of the Linux counter, and I've also been a part of a number of the female-specific both web and Linux projects. I am probably best known for having designed and knit the Drupal socks. I've been involved with the Drupal project for quite some time, as you can tell by my very low user ID number. Again, it's all about the numbers, right? So the Drupal project, and the other reason why I bring this up is that I'm part of two very interesting communities. I'm part of the open source community, which is almost exclusively men, and I'm part of the craft community, which is almost exclusively women. And the really interesting thing for me is that these are both communities that are taking raw materials, inventing a future, and making it happen. And yet, they're completely different in terms of their gender breakdown. And I don't entirely understand why, because I certainly sit on both, I'm part of both worlds. So I'm not entirely sure why we've got this division in terms of gender, but it is, for me, a pretty interesting one. I also run HICKTech, which is the Rural and Modern Technology Conference. When you run a rural and modern technology conference, you have to know that the steer, not cow because that would be female, the steer is a Charlet and the turbine is a Vista turbine, and that's about 45 minutes from where I live. The technology conference does a whole bunch of different things, and we will look at its successes a little bit later in this presentation. I'm pretty average. I haven't contributed to the kernel project. I haven't done fabulous things that would impress you. The other thing, though, that is kind of weird about me and perhaps slightly impressive is I'm not a man. A little bit bizarre, perhaps. And there's another thing about this set of groups which sets me aside a little bit. We've got chicks and girls and women and more chicks, and really this is what I think about it. I don't understand why my vagina needs to be relevant to the functionality of my computer. So this is another thing that sort of sets me apart. I don't want to be identified as a chicks or a girl, although I am part of or have been part of those projects, because I do think it's important that we see those numbers. A little bit of a serious part here. It is a difficult topic. I've read a whole bunch of different books and papers on it. Perhaps the best known is the Unlocking the Clubhouse. A few others as well. Sexual Paradox, very interesting, brand new book that just came out. In it, she basically says that the sign of an advanced society is when you don't have women involved in the sciences, because it means that they have the opportunity to make an equal amount of money outside of that industry. I'm not sure if I agree with it or not. She doesn't actually source Unlocking the Clubhouse, so she's either incredibly brilliant or incredibly off the mark. But there's interesting stuff that's happened. I know you girls, you drop, pick up your chins. So it's difficult in terms of this topic. I've tested social boundaries. Some of you know about the stupid girl incident that I wrote about a while ago. I've pissed a lot of people off because I ask questions that I'm not supposed to ask. I push issues that I'm not supposed to push. But I think it's an important topic that we do need to move forward. So, tech communities, feminist communities, and the most frightening audience that I've ever stood in front of, a room full of 300 teenage girls. Well, you'll see in a minute how my teenage life went. I'm not sure that the gender question really matters because I've never experienced computing in a world where there is gender parity. So I don't know how computing changes when we have an equal number of men and women. Maybe it doesn't change, maybe it does change. I've got no idea. And I don't know how it matters. But it does matter in terms of getting Linux moving forward, the free and open source software moving forward. Because my future includes world domination of free and open source software. And ultimately, if half of the world is women and half of the world is men, you can't get world domination if you've only got the men involved. You need to have women involved to get world domination of free and open source software. So that's the end of the serious part. We go back to the funny stuff now, sort of. So we've got 4 parts in this presentation. Basically, a look at where we are now, including some documents and statistics, a new way of thinking, what I do with HICKTech and why it's effective, and then also 5 steps to change. I had 10, and then I thought, no, I want them to be really easy to remember, so 5 steps to change at the very end. Where we are now, proprietary developers. It's not actually Pac-Man. How many, statistically, I should have at least one colorblind man. Anyone? Okay, interesting. There wasn't at Nauticon either. So proprietary world, you think, okay, it's kind of crappy. Open source software, free, liberating, there's going to be more of them. Absolutely not. The actual numbers on this, 72% are male in the proprietary world, 1.5% are female. The numbers from this are from the Floss Polls study. It's also in a slightly older study that was done in Japan, so it's been replicated that the numbers are really low in terms of female involvement. We normally focus on the behavior of men to explain why there aren't more women in open source computing. We also look a little bit in terms of female gender socialization, what happens with girls at a young age, who gets the computer in their bedroom in terms of if you've got daughters and sons, that kind of stuff. So a lot of the focus is on the bad behavior of men. And the classic document, and this is where I've been stressing about this for a long time, but the classic document on bad behavior of men being, of course, how to encourage women in open source. And we've got 26 rules of engagement in this document. Ultimately, totally awesome if you are a rule-based person. So if you've got that little bit of Asperger's in you and you need to have rules, it's awesome. Yes? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and it's awesome for rule-based stuff. So we've got 13 don'ts and 13 do's. Here's our don'ts. Read really quickly. Here's our do's. Fabulous. I'm more of a summary kind of person, so here's the summary. Don't be a dick. Do encourage participation. And for some of you who've been close enough to me today, the fabric on the top half of my shirt is the Dick and Jane fabric. And that's what the background is, just in case you were feeling a little bit shy about walking up to me and doing this. So, so we do have the basic, don't be a dick, do encourage participation. It doesn't need to be difficult, and you don't need to feel like you're constantly doing something right or something wrong. Humans are social. We've got social interaction in free and open source software. The problem with social interaction is that it sometimes gets a little bit awkward. And there we go. Yeah. Now, I don't mean to suggest that it's always going to be the girl that's getting humped on, shall we say, because I know about awkward. I really know about awkward. Yeah, the tie. The great part about the tie is that the class made me take it off for the class picture because they didn't want to be associated with it. and they let me put it back on for my individual shot. In case you're not sure, the tie is wrong. But really, so I understand from awkward. Now, in case you weren't sure about so we've got the hints here. Some of you may know this quote. We've got a few chuckles. Yeah. God gave men brains larger than dogs so that they wouldn't hump women's legs at cocktail parties. And that's, yeah, but I do. I totally understand from awkward. So we need to get over the awkward stuff. Have your moment where you say your awful joke, realize it's an awful joke, recover, and move on. Oh, right, we've got more of the awkward stuff. And ultimately even more. And really, classic from today. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. So fabulous. Yeah. Oh, you missed the gong-a-thong. So the gong-a-thong is basically 5-minute presentations, and the guy in the thong gongs you off. Now, the great thing about it is it's a complete role reversal. Normally we get women in bikinis, right? Well, this is not a women in bikini kind of show. No, this is the gong-a-thong. And all of these things I think are very funny, and I'm okay with sexually charged jokes as long as they're not sexist jokes. And that may be a little bit weird to say that I'm okay with it being a sexually charged environment. Not that I want it to be all sex all the time. I really, really don't. But if it happens every now and then, maybe we could just roll with it. So, 3 slides there. Let's take a look at what we had. We had whether or not Kate was being sexist, wondering if Randall uses Wikipedia, and was it okay to man-gaze the man? Like, we don't normally get to actually man-gaze men. It's normally the other way around. So there's a couple of questions here, and ultimately what we really want to know is it okay to laugh at this stuff? Am I going to get completely ostracized if I think these jokes are funny? And I have had people explain things to me because and I don't actually have it in this talk, but if I say the blowjob server ad, how many people remember? There's a few people who are willing to, okay, yeah. So I thought it was hilarious the first time I saw it because I didn't realize that she didn't have a neck. She didn't have a body. So she was just kind of this face that was floating around. And so there's definitely been stuff as well that I've had to have explained to me. So it's not that every single woman out there is the perfected feminist in terms of understanding all of the rules. We are all human beings. We just need to figure out how to work together a little bit. So we need to see the future. We need to see how we can get free and open source software to dominate the world, because that's really where it's at, right? Status quo. Now we're going to move on to a new way of thinking. So instead of having exclusively rule-based stuff where we're pointing fingers, let's see if I have that as a, oh, okay. Rule-based stuff where we're pointing fingers, we need to really think about what's good for free and open source software. So instead of dividing it based on gender, let's think about what brings us all here. Linux user groups, log radio, it's the computing stuff. Now, unfortunately, market share means end users. So if we want to squash bug number 1, we have to target end users. And we all know what we think about end users. It's a little bit of this, isn't it? Boring. Yeah. Oh, and as a by the way, you've been rickrolled. This is me, only slightly older than the tie. I don't know if you can tell in this light, but I'm sporting a mullet. I assure you that my teen years were not kind. And I had to actually Photoshop in Rick Astley to be able to rickroll you. Sorry to disappoint. So we've got to move the end users. We have to get more end users. And the reason, if you remember back to the Microsoft or the proprietary slides where we've got 75% or 72% male developers, they have a lot of end users. So if we could get a lot of end users, maybe we could actually get more female developers as well. The challenge is that we have to get people to switch brands. And switching brands can often be like getting people to change their cigarette brand. It basically doesn't happen. I go through a couple of marketing wonk slides, for lack of a better word here. Bear with me, because they're all kind of quotes from quasi-important publications. 2/3 of women are likely to switch brands based on a good cause. Only 15% are willing to switch brands based on a good cause. Women make up more than, this is North American focused, women make up more than 80% of buying decisions in all homes. Women research extensively and are less likely to be influenced by ads, which may sound familiar. You may recognize this one. Oh, lots of chuckles on this one. All right, so we've got here shopping teams, bad, 2 non-nerds. Let's get that one. Okay. Good, a non-nerd and a nerd. Let's get that one. No, wait, I think the other one might be a better deal. Okay, that one. Very bad, 2 nerds. Blah, blah, blah. 2 hours later, this is not your main problem. So, women are willing to, they're going to do the research, right? They're going to replicate this situation for you. We also place, I hate to stereotype, but we do also place more importance on brand characteristics and personal assistance from store personnel and experts than men do. I know for myself, I'm willing to spend in the range of 10 to 15% more on high-end bicycles, push bikes, but very expensive ones. If I like the store that I'm dealing with, I will pay more for a product if I like the service that I'm getting from them. So, a couple of problems with all of those stats. It's free and it's self-serve. Darn, that's kind of unfortunate. So we need to think differently about this problem. How many people know about the Red Hat Society? A few people, right on. So we need to go from thinking about a single red hat to a whole bunch of red hats. We need to go from thinking about individual people to how we can find large groups of people to essentially convert. So the Red Hat Society is one example of a large group of women. I've got 3 more examples here, and basically this is what we need to do. We need to identify the strength of free and open source software. We need to determine real needs, and then we need to focus our efforts. Strength. It's free. Fabulous. Go and talk to charities. Tend to employ a lot of women. And I have to say, I'm really jealous that everyone's drinking a beer, and I do recognize that this is being videotaped, but someone needs to go and get me a beer. Thank you. Thank you, Leslie. Fabulous. I'm unfortunate that it's a... Oh, beautiful. Okay. The problem is that this is going on the internet. My mother's going to see it, so I'm going to turn away for a second. Shh. Beauty. All right, so much better. Charities tend to employ a lot of women. So, show a local charity how they can take advantage of free and open source software, and that's where I earn most of my mortgage payments from. Typically with Drupal installations, but then also with OpenOffice, for example. So there's a lot of applications that will easily fit into a not-for-profit organization that's currently paying for Microsoft Office or that kind of thing. You don't need to get them using Linux right away, but if you can get them started on it. First one. Second one, we're going to provide them with freedom. Senior citizens tend to get a little bit trapped into their routines, whether it's playing card games or whatever it happens to be. If we can help them to escape, what we can do is skip a generation. So if we can get the grandparents using free and open source software, that may trickle down to the grandkids. And the reason why I can say that is a lot of the seniors that I work with, their primary focus on the internet is talking to their grandkids. So whether it's through chat applications or sending emails with photos, that kind of thing. So again, if we can get seniors a lot of time, not going to school, retired, getting their grandkids excited about stuff, we can affect change in a very different way. Great thing about seniors, they tend to congregate in old age homes. So again, you can target. It's true though. My hometown is a retirement community. It's been 20,000 people for the last, over 100 years. And we have a large number of retirement homes, but they have writers groups and they do all kinds of things. So there's an easy group to get involved with. That was 2. Number 3, this is why I needed the alcohol. Okay, alternative groups. Ah, yes, that would be the alternative groups. Let me just pause for a moment while I let you have that one sink in. Yeah. I'm hoping I don't need to explain what these are. Not everyone's quite chuckling yet, but we'll just give you a minute. People who are willing to be alternative in public. This is a store. These are all for sale. These are people who are going to be coming in and buying products that are, shall we say, of the alternative ilk. And if you happen to have a stack of Ubuntu CDs in your local sex shop, chances are people are going to ask about them. They may actually pick them up and take them home. We're looking for groups of people, not individuals, groups of people that we can ask to switch over to free and open source software. So whatever it takes for you to think creatively about new kinds of people. It's not an overnight solution, this advocacy stuff. A one-night stand, playing on the last couple of slides here, can affect a person's life. Now we move to the in real life part of the presentation. And we're going to look at the tech conference that I run. That's actually the 4th part. Women tend to socialize a lot more, said some dude named Peter Cooper. Hopefully Peter Cooper isn't here. Good, all right. Perhaps they don't really need conferences in order to come together and learn about things, a social outlet. Based on my experience, that's kind of a load of horseshit, because women love to get together to do things. Traditionally, we've got quilting bees. The modern equivalent, perhaps, is the scrapbooking retreat. There's also the nature journaling retreats. And just in case you're sure and unsure about why I've got this one, we've got the Spot the Dork game again. That would be me off in the corner with the Blue Rinse crowd. Fabulous weekend, as a by the way. Totally love these guys. But women will pay to attend social gatherings on topics of interest. Charging a fee forces a commitment to participation. Charging a higher fee implies that you've got more value in the experience. So, HICKTech is the technology conference that I put together. It is how the internet connects knowledge. It's also a bit of a racial slur in case you were unaware of it. This is what Hicks look like. That's a pumpkin chucking contest. So if any of you golf, you may recognize this kind of stuff out in the field. These are trebuchets. After you've launched your pumpkin, a couple of guys in an ATV go and find it for you. This is actually about a 20-minute drive from my hometown. It's the Canadian Nationals. 5 different categories of pumpkin chuckers. Perhaps the most impressive one is the air cannon. In case you aren't sure, that's a pumpkin that's exploded just coming out of the cannon. Before we make fun of the jack-o'-lantern, though, we need to realize that it can go really, really far. This is a successful launch. You can see that that's a single pumpkin that hasn't exploded midair. So we do take this technology stuff really, really seriously at the HIC level. I have all kinds of information about cow breeding and RIFID tags based on my experience with this conference. For me, the really cool thing about it are the people who show up. It's an ideas-focused end-user conference, which was not my initial thought about what it was going to be, but it empowers women to talk about technology. In fact, it empowers women so much to talk about technology that I have more women registered for my one-day conference than I have men. And again, this is a technology conference. Now, the really cool thing about it, this is cool. The really cool thing about it is the women register and bring their husbands. It's not very usual. So how did I manage to do this? Well, I managed to do it by setting an example in terms of the speakers. So my first year, I had 18 presentations that included women and 18 that included men. So the women were able to see themselves in the speakers, and they also, because it's a local conference, they recognized some of the names of the speakers and they showed up, which was really cool. So in 2008, I'm not quite at 50-50, but I'm still pretty close. And ultimately, you do see that reflected in the registrant. So if you can get gender equality in terms of your presenters, here's the really cool thing. I don't have fewer men showing up. I have twice as many, or not twice as many, but I've got half of the registrants are women. So I've essentially doubled my potential revenue because I have women coming to this conference. Am I going backwards? There we go. So we increased overall participation. They registered early, which is fantastic because they basically allowed me to pay for printing and rent my venue and all kinds of stuff, which is really important when you're running a conference. Waiting for the last minute to sort of guess at who might show up is very, very nerve-wracking. And then even higher, so 2/3 of my early bird registrants were women. In fact, I think the first 10 registrations were women for a $150 conference. So I was pretty impressed with that. So we're almost at the end here, and I've probably flown through to the point where I'm like, 20 minutes into what I thought was going to be a 40-minute presentation. Am I right? That's about 30 minutes. All right. So 5 steps to change. First of all, live in the future. Be a real person on and offline. I would love to see more women self-identify as women online. I know it's not for everyone, but it's part of the reason why I switched from Newt to Emma Jane. It was a reminder for me that I don't need to have a dual personality. I don't need to lead a dual life. I can be the same person regardless of what environment that I'm working in or living in. Behave as if you were already surrounded by women. I love them dearly, but none of them are currently here. The Lug Radio boys, love them. But if I have to listen one more time to how Jono's spuds fall out of his pants while sleeping at conferences, I might have to have some words. Because I don't need to hear that kind of stuff. There's nothing clever about it, really. And I think that dynamic would shift if there were women in the room with them while they were recording. Not that it would necessarily be for the worst or for the better. I just think it would be a slightly different dynamic. So behave as if you were already surrounded by women. And finally, work on the main team of free and open source software projects. Wherever possible, and this is mostly directed at women, don't sort of segregate yourselves and think that you're not worthy of working on main projects. Your contributions are absolutely critical to the main part of the team, to the whole part of the team. And the more that you can be a role model to other women, the more women we're going to get involved in these projects. So wherever you can, I mean, absolutely, I'm part of the women-based groups, but I'm less and less active in them because I think that I can have more of a difference when I'm part of the core teams. It also, it forces people to see that we're not a group that's going to sort of quietly die off at the side. We're part of the team. We're going to be in your face in terms of reporting bugs and fixing bugs and doing all the rest of it. And we don't need to be segregated. We need to be part of the whole team, and we need to be important. Do one thing different. So I have to read this one, unfortunately. If we have conscience on every daily action, we can change mainstream conceptions, which I think is really important to recognize. If you think about every single thing that you're doing, and this could be to do with recycling, it could be to do with your takeout container and eating in at a restaurant. If you think about everything that you do, chances are you're going to end up changing the world. Problem is, it gets very overwhelming very quickly. So I want you to change one thing. Start by opening the window for one person, whether it's installing Firefox or OpenOffice or whatever those things happen to be. I mean, those all count as one thing. And if you can affect change one time, chances are that you'll get on a roll because you'll see how easy it is, and you'll do it again and again and again. But if you've got huge, unwieldy goals, you're never going to actually know where to start. So start with one thing. Once you've accomplished that, set yourself a really tight timeline. Do one thing different. Once you've done that, do a second thing different, and build up to it. You'll get excited. It'll be fun. Ask for help. There's two groups you need to ask for help. You need to ask women to be role models. Geek Speaker, brand new website that it's basically a place for women to put their technical speakers to place their bios online. Started by a group in New Zealand, I think, and they're all Brenda Wallace. It's already overwhelmingly full. It's awesome. I loved going in and seeing it. And you sort of, with these kind of community groups, you go in, you put your name in. A week later, your name is still the newest user. Within a day, my name was not even on the front page of speakers. There's tons of female speakers that can present at your conferences. Get them up at the front. You'll increase the number of people at your conferences. Ask men to help, too. And that means holding men accountable who are organizing conferences. I'll put my one little beef in here right now. At this point in time, Ubuntu Live, which is happening in July, has, and I don't know all of the names, but I believe they have exactly one confirmed female speaker. Ubuntu uses women on over 50%, and I love Ubuntu, I absolutely do, but they've got women on over 50% of the marketing images in terms of the website, the CDs, all that kind of stuff. And yet, their conference does not reflect their marketing material. Yep? Apparently, it's about 20%. That's the number I got from Jono. So, Canonical does not have a good track record for hiring women. Is that a correct way of technical women? So, complain about it in terms of the conference. I don't know if boycotting is necessarily the best way to do it, but write in and say, how is it that? Now, I know that I would say at least a good third of their presenters are still to be confirmed. But even if every single one of them is female, which I highly doubt it will be, it's still not balanced in terms of what their marketing material shows. Maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe it does. So ask men to be role models as well. And I do want to put a shout out to the Lug Radio Live guys for getting as many women on stage as they did. I think it's 25%, which is still more than one at Ubuntu Live. So, and seriously, good on them for actually making an effort to find female speakers. Empower people to make foolish mistakes. If you can empower them, it will eliminate fear. Here's a classic example of empowering someone to make a foolish mistake so they can recover from it. VW advertised a while ago, their past marketing campaign was drivers wanted. This is me with my old car and my new car. Totally love the Owen Sound dealership because with my new car I got flowers. Love it. Now, here's the thing that kind of is the foolish mistake. I stalled 3 times leaving the garage because I'd put the handbrake on and I hadn't noticed. They didn't take the keys away, though. If that had been a computer problem, guaranteed my keyboard would have been gone. I was allowed to stall the car 3 times in front of an entire dealership and another new customer in terms of a car owner. I don't stall the car with the emergency brake on anymore. I have now learned that lesson. But it wasn't embarrassing to the point where I felt that I couldn't recover from it. In fact, we all had a very good chuckle about the whole thing. And the first time I did it, I kind of blushed. The second time I did it, I got a little bit frustrated at myself. And the third time I did it, they opened the door and put the handbrake down because they could tell that the car was going, can't do it. Not going to do it. But they enabled me to make the mistake and recover in a way that made me feel more confident as the driver of my own car. And wherever you can allow people to make that mistake and teach them to recover from it, you're going to be better off for it. Finally, the 5th point, clearly transfer authority. Women are used to consuming technology. We are not used to being in the driver's seat. So there's 3 points here as I lose my voice. Encourage women to question the software they're given. Ask them how they would improve it. And finally, teach them to change reality. So we've got 5 steps to change. Live in the future. Do one thing different. Ask for help. Empower people. And clearly transfer authority. We need to keep our eye on the prize, which is not necessarily gender parity. We're talking world domination of free and open source software. And ultimately, we are 50% of the solution. Thank you very much. Any questions? Yeah?
Well, I think one thing that I'm taking with the talk is there really isn't a killer algorithm. It's vertical by vertical, it's niche by niche.
Oh, sorry, microphones. You'll have to start again. Thanks, Ted. Right there.
There's no killer algorithm. It's niche by niche, vertical by vertical. Is what we all need to realize to get lost everywhere. It's not going to be one app that just everyone says, oh, I've got to have one installed. It's going to be one web.
And that's identify the strength, figure out what the group needs, identify the strength, and pitch it to them in that way. Most people probably don't really care that the code is completely open and they can change it themselves. They care that it's free and it's not going to cost their charity additional money.
And that it solves their problem.
I have a question.
So, you showed GeekSpeaker?
Yeah.
Which is an awesome resource. But I think you had your conference before geekspeaker.com was available.
Yes.
How did you, first of all, find all of the women who spoke, and second of all, convince them all to speak? Because one issue, just anecdotally I've heard, is that women will be asked to speak, but then they'll refuse.
Yeah. Couple of different things. My talk at Nauticon last weekend went over some of this stuff, but basically the most important thing to do was ask. The reason why I was able to get as many women as I did was that it's a small town. I know a lot of women, and unfortunately in some cases there may have been a lot of social pressure required to get them to speak. But yeah. But in some of them, my favorite presenter last year was the woman who runs the animal shelter. And she, bless her, barely knows how to turn on her computer, and she freely admits this. But she has an incredibly successful blog. What she does is she writes up a story, she emails it to her webmaster. You're going to love this stuff. Emails it to her webmaster, who changes a file by hand, FTPs it to the server. I know. And they don't want to change it because they know that this formula works. But when she added a blog, she went from 7 visitors a day to the shelter website to 7,000. Why? Because everyone loves hearing about sick puppies and half-dead kittens. So I said to her, okay, you really have to come and do a presentation about how successful your website is. And it's incredible. We're up in Owen Sound. That's like, I don't even know where north is, way up there. And she has prayer groups in Florida for the animals that she takes in at her shelter. It's awesome. So I convinced her to do the presentation by basically saying, the story is the most important thing that you can tell at this conference. I don't care about the technology part. It's the story that's going to make a difference to people's understanding of why it's important. So she got up with her PowerPoint slides, and I recognized all of the Microsoft clip art that she used. And but she went through, and it was totally charming because I remember the slide. It's my favorite one. And it was so engaging that it made for a more powerful presentation because the audience members realized that this was something that they could do themselves. That someone who is human up at the front of the room is actually going to make people excited about going and making change. And if you can convince the female speaker that their enthusiasm for the project and their willingness to be human is actually going to make more of a change than an expert speaker who seems completely inaccessible, chances are they may actually be willing to speak. Other questions? Oh, okay, yeah.
One of the interesting statistics was that 80% of women make the household buying decisions. And a lot of times it's like, well, how do you get that message to the developer community and people in Boss World and stuff? I keep wanting to say, I am your audience. So how do you it seems still very developer-centric, where we're making stuff, but we're making it for ourselves. We're still not making it for the people who are making, everyday household decisions.
In terms of the different distros, there's definitely some distros that are more user-friendly than others. And it goes back to pairing needs to capabilities. So if you can identify, for example, that, my mom surfs the web, she likes to play online Scrabble, and she also runs a very successful business. But in terms of the applications that she actually needs, if you can figure out how to set up a system that only does those things and make some decisions ahead of time, rather than say, you can do it all. You can do email in 18 different ways, 21 if you include MUT and their variants. But if you can help people focus in, and this is where if you're going and doing a presentation for a group of people, and then you've got basically a distro that's focused on, or not a distro, but a setup that's focused on their needs, then I think it's going to be easier for people to understand how it's relevant to them. In terms of developers being mostly interested in entertaining themselves, for lack of a better word, let them entertain themselves. When you get to a critical mass of users who all have the same need, either one of those users is going to figure out how to solve the problem, or you'll get a developer who you submit that bug report or that feature request enough times with enough votes or whatever the system is for that project, eventually it'll get worked on. And it's not a fast solution, but if you can start with a critical mass of interest, I think that developers will be more interested in making the change happen. Does that answer your question a little bit? Yeah? Okay.
Any other questions?
No?
Do you have a website, or does HICKTech have a website?
Yeah, HICKTech.com, and you can follow my sewing and knitting adventures on EmmaJane.net, which I realize is going to be of interest to most of you. I am on Ravelry. I'm EmmaJane.net on Ravelry, yeah. Pardon? No, I'll teach you how to knit them yourself, though. Yeah. And I do have socks with me, so if you want to learn how to knit socks this weekend, I am working on a pair. So come and find me and I'll teach you how to knit. Seriously. All right. I think that's it.